Samantha Reyes had lived in fear for as long as she could remember. The creak of a door, the sound of footsteps in the hallway, even the chime of her phone would send her heart racing. On the outside, she appeared composed, a young woman with warm brown eyes, sharp instincts, and a quiet demeanor who worked part-time at the town library. But inside, she carried scars no one could see. Ever since the night her world was torn apart 3 years ago, when her ex-boyfriend, Aaron Keller, attacked her and left her broken in more ways than one, she had never truly healed. Despite the restraining order and the criminal conviction that sent Aaron away for what was supposed to be 5 years, Samantha never felt safe. She was always looking over her shoulder, always sleeping with one eye open. Her small cottage at the edge of Fairhill, a sleepy town surrounded by dense forest, was her attempt at peace, but it only reminded her how alone she truly was. Then came Rex. He wasn't hers at first. Rex was a retired police K9, a German shepherd with sharp eyes, a strong build, and a calmness that came from years of disciplined service. The police department was looking for someone to foster him temporarily while they found a long-term home. Samantha's neighbor, Officer Marla Jensen, suggested her. He's trained. Gentle and less provoked. And he's loyal. I think he'd make you feel safe, Marla had said over coffee one morning, after noticing how often Samantha checked her windows and double-locked her doors. At first, Samantha was hesitant. She had never owned a dog before, let alone a retired K9 who had once chased down armed suspects and sniffed out explosives. But the fear of being vulnerable was stronger than her doubt. She agreed, thinking it would be a short-term arrangement, just a few weeks of company. When Rex first stepped into her home, Samantha froze. The large dog stood at the threshold, ears alert, eyes scanning the interior. He didn't bark or whine. He simply looked at her, then sat patiently as if to say, "I'm here. I won't let anything hurt you." His presence was intimidating, yet there was something deeply reassuring in the way he observed everything. Samantha took a tentative step forward and reached out a hand. Rex sniffed it, then gently nudged her palm with his nose. That moment marked the beginning of something neither of them saw coming. In the days that followed, Rex adapted quickly to her quiet routines. He would sleep beside her bed, wake when she stirred, and patrol the house at night with quiet footsteps. When she went into the backyard to tend to her garden, a small plot of tomatoes and lavender, he would sit nearby, watching the trees like a sentry. For the first time in years, Samantha began to relax. Not completely, but enough to feel the difference. Her nightmares lessened. She slept a little deeper. She even ventured into town more often, Rex walking beside her, drawing the curious stares of neighbors but never acting out. She felt protected. But even as things grew calmer, there was a storm gathering that Samantha couldn't see. Aaron Keller had been released early, less than 3 years into his sentence. Overcrowding, good behavior, and a technicality in the prosecution's handling of the case had led to his early parole. Samantha wasn't informed immediately, and when she finally got the call from a court liaison, her stomach dropped. "You're advised to remain alert," the woman on the line said. "If you notice anything suspicious, report it immediately." But what did that mean? Was she supposed to just wait for her worst fear to return? That night, she sat on the couch with Rex curled up beside her, the low hum of a storm brewing outside. Rain tapped the windows, and distant thunder rolled over the hills. She stared at the fireplace, remembering that night 3 years ago. Aaron had screamed at her, grabbed her by the arms, thrown her across the kitchen. The way he looked at her, as if she were his possession, still haunted her. She buried her face into Rex's thick fur, her tears silent but hot. The dog didn't move. He simply let her cry, his head resting gently on her lap, tail still, breathing calm and steady. The days that followed were a blur. Samantha tried to live normally, but something felt wrong. It was little things. Her garden gate, which she always latched, was found swinging open one morning. A shadow at the end of her driveway one night that vanished before she could see clearly. Once, she found footprints leading up to her back door, though it hadn't rained in days and she hadn't had visitors. She told Marla, who promised to check in more often. But even Marla looked worried. "You sure the cameras are working?" she asked. Samantha nodded. The small set of home security cameras she installed after the attack were functional. But the footage never showed anything clear, just brief movements, something out of frame, and once, the faint sound of a man humming off screen. Rex, however, began acting differently. More alert. He would growl softly at the window some nights, pacing near the front door as if sensing something she couldn't. During one walk along the trail behind her house, Rex stopped dead in his tracks, ears up, body rigid. Then, in a flash, he lunged toward the woods and barked ferociously. Samantha, heart racing, held onto the leash and called him back. It took minutes to calm him down. When she scanned the woods, she saw nothing, but she couldn't shake the feeling someone had been watching them. That night, she packed a small bag just in case. Her emergency phone, a can of pepper spray, and some money. It made her feel paranoid, but she'd learned the hard way that trusting her instincts could mean the difference between survival and regret. She also started sleeping with her bedroom door locked. Something she hadn't done in months. Rex slept closer to the bed now, waking at the slightest sound. Then, it happened. It was around 3:12 a.m. when she woke with a start. The sound that had stirred her was faint, like the creak of a floorboard. Her hand flew to the nightstand, reaching for her flashlight and phone. Rex was already up, standing at the foot of the bed, ears pointed, muscles tense. He growled low, and it wasn't like before. It was deep, guttural, a warning. Samantha's heart pounded so loudly she was sure the intruder could hear it. She crept out of bed and crept toward the hallway, Rex moving ahead of her like a shadow. They paused at the top of the stairs. Another sound. The unmistakable click of the back door lock. Someone was inside. Before Samantha could react, Rex bolted, his training taking over. He bounded down the stairs and into the kitchen with a growl that shook the house. There was a scuffle. The sound of a man cursing, something heavy falling, a crash of glass. Samantha stayed frozen at the top of the stairs, hands trembling, unable to move, until the sound of Rex's bark told her he had cornered whoever it was. She forced her legs to work and rushed downstairs, phone in hand. What she saw would stay with her forever. There, pressed against the far kitchen counter, was Aaron Keller. His face was pale, his hoodie torn at the sleeve, a knife lying on the floor a few feet away. Rex stood between him and Samantha, teeth bared, growling menacingly. Aaron had a gash on his arm where Rex had clearly bitten him during the struggle. His eyes were wide, filled with disbelief and rage. "You sick that dog on me," he shouted, voice cracking. "You think this is over, Sam?" Samantha didn't flinch. She held up her phone. "The police are on their way. You'll regret this. You always." "Rex," she said, voice steady. The dog snarled, inching closer. Aaron shut up. Moments later, sirens wailed in the distance. Officer Marla was the first through the door, gun drawn, followed by 2 deputies. They tackled Aaron, cuffed him, and pulled him out of the house. Samantha sank to the floor, every part of her shaking. Rex came to her side and sat beside her, leaning his body against hers, silent and calm as if to say, "It's over. I kept you safe." In that moment, Samantha realized something she had never felt before: she was no longer alone. The terror that had stalked her for years had been stopped not by walls or locks, but by the instincts of a loyal companion who saw her fear, recognized the danger, and acted without hesitation. Rex hadn't just been protecting her. He had saved her life. And though the battle wasn't over, she knew something had changed forever. The days following Aaron's arrest felt like walking through the aftermath of a storm, broken, scattered, and eerily quiet. Samantha's cottage, once her fragile sanctuary, now bore the markings of a violent invasion. The shattered glass from the back door had been cleaned up, but the memory of that night lingered in every creak of the floorboards and every glance toward the kitchen. It was no longer a question of if she had ever been in danger. It was a reminder that her instincts, sharpened by fear and kept alive by trauma, had not betrayed her. And Rex, he had been the blade that sliced through the darkness. Aaron was taken back into custody immediately. Marla assured Samantha he would face additional charges, violating a restraining order, breaking and entering, attempted assault with a weapon, and more. They'll throw the book at him this time, she promised, hand resting gently on Samantha's shoulder. You did everything right. But Samantha didn't feel victorious. She felt hollow. The fear hadn't disappeared, it had simply been confirmed. And though she was safe, at least for now, something inside her was unraveling. The police offered to place her in temporary protective housing while the case was processed, but Samantha declined. She didn't want to run anymore. Instead, she reinforced her home with stronger locks, installed brighter floodlights, added more cameras, and let Rex roam the property freely. He was her protector, her guardian. Wherever she went, he followed, calm and quiet, always watching. And slowly, she began to breathe again. But the trauma took its toll. In the nights that followed, Samantha found herself sitting up in bed, unable to sleep. Her eyes would dart to the hallway, her hand clutching the flashlight. Rex often climbed onto the bed and lay beside her, his steady breathing acting as a counterbalance to her spiraling thoughts. She began seeing a therapist in town, a kind woman named Dr. Myra Langston, who specialized in trauma victims and veterans. At first, Samantha struggled to open up. But Myra was patient, and Rex was allowed to sit in the room with her during sessions, something Myra called a brilliant emotional anchor. He's not just protecting you physically, Myra had said during their third session. He's giving you a sense of agency. That's the first step to healing. Samantha nodded, brushing her fingers through Rex's fur. He didn't hesitate, she whispered. He knew. Before I did. That's what instincts do, Myra said. They fill in the gaps where logic and fear fight each other. You survived because of yours, and his. Word of what happened spread quickly through Fairhill. The local paper ran a short piece titled "Retired K9 Stops Intruder, Saves Local Woman." It didn't mention names, but everyone knew. Some neighbors came by to offer kind words, while others left notes and baskets by her gate. Samantha appreciated the gestures but remained withdrawn. She didn't want pity. What she wanted was strength. To rebuild herself into someone who didn't live in terror. It was a Wednesday morning when something unexpected arrived. A letter, addressed by hand, with no return address. Samantha opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sentence, typed in bold. I'm not finished with you. Her heart stopped. Her hands trembled. The paper fell to the floor as if it had burned her fingers. Rex immediately sensed something was wrong. He walked over and stood beside her, sniffing the letter, then letting out a low growl. She contacted the police at once. Marla came by within 20 minutes, gloves on, carefully taking the letter for fingerprinting. We'll run it through the system, she said. But if he sent this, he's breaking the no-contact order again. It'll only strengthen the case against him. But what if it wasn't him? Samantha asked. What if someone else? Marla looked her in the eyes. We'll find out. Until then, keep Rex close and keep your doors locked. I'm putting in a request for a patrol unit to drive past here every few hours. That night, Samantha stared out the window, feeling the cold seep into her bones. The letter had reignited every fear she'd just started to put behind her. Was it Aaron? Was it someone working with him? Or was it just a sick prank from someone who had read the news article? The unknown made her spiral. Rex lay across the doorway, his head on his paws, tail flicking slightly. Every time she stirred, he looked up at her, eyes calm but alert. His silent presence reminded her that even though the fear was real, she was no longer defenseless. Several days passed without incident. No new letters. No signs of forced entry. The forensic team found no fingerprints on the paper. Whoever sent it had worn gloves. The local sheriff promised to monitor Aaron closely in holding, but he hadn't yet been transferred to the state penitentiary due to court scheduling delays. Samantha tried to return to her routine. She went back to the library, always with Rex by her side. Patrons who once gave her a nod now looked at her with something like reverence. Children asked if they could pet Rex, and when she allowed it, the dog was always gentle, sitting patiently while tiny fingers explored his fur. In those moments, something in Samantha softened. Still, her nightmares returned with a vengeance. In one, she was trapped in a dark room, and no matter how loud she screamed, no one came. In another, Aaron stood at her front door, Rex frozen beside her, unable to move. She would wake up gasping for breath, and Rex would lick her hand or nuzzle her side until she calmed down. One night, she whispered into his ear, "I don't know how I did this without you. I don't think I ever could again." The next morning, while walking through the woods behind her home, an area she had once feared but now found oddly peaceful with Rex, Samantha discovered something disturbing. A scarf. Her scarf. Torn, dirty, and caught on a low-hanging branch about a mile down the trail. But she hadn't been down that path in weeks. Her heart thumped in her chest. She crouched to examine it. Rex sniffed it once, then began growling again, this time with greater urgency. His fur stood on edge. He darted to the edge of the trail and barked into the trees, loud and unrelenting. Samantha called him back quickly, clipped his leash, and turned toward home without looking back. The police responded again. They sent a search team into the forest and found signs that someone had been camping nearby, ashes from a fire pit, discarded food wrappers, and boot prints. But no sign of who it was. Marla's voice trembled when she said, "This isn't over, Sam. But you need to know, we're doing everything we can." For Samantha, it felt like being hunted. But something inside her was changing. The fear wasn't consuming her as it once had. Instead, it was sharpening her focus. She no longer felt like a passive victim. Rex's loyalty, Myra's counseling, and her own rising defiance were building something stronger in her, resilience. She started training with Rex in the backyard. Marla helped set up some of the old police K9 commands, and Samantha practiced them daily. Heel. Guard. Search. Stay. Rex obeyed instantly, proud and eager. Their bond deepened. They moved as one now. She also learned to shoot, a decision that terrified her, but Marla walked her through it at a local range. "I'm not telling you to be a soldier," she said. "Just don't be helpless." 1 week later, another letter came. This time, it said, "See you soon." But this time, Samantha didn't panic. She didn't cry. She stood up, held Rex's leash tight, and stared out the window. "Let him come," she whispered. "We're ready." The girl who once lived in terror was still afraid, but now she was prepared. Because she had Rex. And Rex never blinked. The air was different that evening. Not colder, not darker, but heavier. Samantha could feel it pressing against her skin like an invisible weight, as though the entire world was holding its breath. Rex sensed it too. He paced more than usual, ears twitching, tail stiff. The second threatening letter hadn't just been a warning, it was a promise. And Samantha knew it wouldn't be long before that promise came knocking. But she wasn't the same woman who cowered behind locked doors anymore. She was ready, and so was Rex. That night, she didn't sleep. She stayed on the couch, dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, one hand on the flashlight, the other stroking Rex's fur. She'd armed herself with more than just courage. The small pistol Marla helped her acquire sat holstered under the coffee table. She hoped to never use it. But she would, if she had to. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees, rustling branches like a whispering threat. And then, at exactly 2:14 a.m., the motion sensor lights at the back of the house clicked on. Rex stood immediately. No bark. Just a low growl rumbling from his throat as he faced the kitchen door. Samantha's breath caught in her chest. She grabbed the pistol and crept to the kitchen window, heart pounding against her ribs. Outside, in the glow of the floodlight, she saw him. A man. Hooded. Hands covered. Creeping along the edge of the porch, heading toward the back entrance. Aaron. It had to be him. Every instinct screamed at her to hide, to call the police, but she stayed still, watching, waiting. Rex hadn't moved. He crouched beside her, like a coiled spring, awaiting her command. Her fingers trembled as she dialed Marla's direct line, whispering her location and what she saw. "We're on our way," came the quiet, urgent voice. 10 minutes. Don't engage. Just stay safe. But it wouldn't be that simple. Aaron didn't wait. Within seconds, he smashed a crowbar against the reinforced door. The first blow didn't break it, but the second cracked the frame. Samantha backed into the living room, Rex now growling louder. Her hands shook around the pistol. She stood behind the couch, Rex at her side, as the door finally gave way with a shattering crash. Aaron stepped into the kitchen like a shadow come to life. His face was masked, but she knew those eyes. Cold. Focused. Unfeeling. He took a step forward, scanning the room, and then froze when he saw Rex. Rex snarled, teeth bared, muscles taut. One command, and he'd launch. But Aaron laughed. "I knew you'd sick the mutt on me. That's why I brought this." He raised a small black device, an animal deterrent that emitted a high-frequency sound. He clicked it. A sharp whine filled the room. Rex whimpered, stumbling, ears pinned back. Samantha cried out, dropping to her knees beside him. "Stop," she yelled. "Stop it." Aaron stepped forward, cocky, cruel. "He can't help you now. You think you're safe? You think letters were the end? I warned you. You turned me in. You humiliated me." Samantha's fear turned into rage. "You tried to kill me," she spat, rising slowly. "You broke me. But I'm still here. And I am not yours anymore." Aaron raised the device again, but this time, Samantha fired. The shot missed, burying itself into the wall beside him, but it was enough. He stumbled backward, startled, and dropped the high-frequency device. The second it hit the floor, Rex leapt. He moved like a missile. Pain forgotten, instinct in control. He sank his teeth into Aaron's arm, dragging him down with a ferocity Samantha had never seen before. Aaron screamed, flailing, trying to break free. But Rex held fast. Samantha stood frozen, the pistol still raised but her heart pounding too fast to fire again. Within minutes, sirens blared in the distance. Red and blue lights danced against the window. Marla was the first through the door, weapon drawn. "Samantha! Down!" "I'm okay," she shouted, stepping back. Marla and 2 other officers restrained Aaron, forcing Rex to release. Rex backed away obediently, blood on his muzzle, eyes locked on Samantha as if asking, "Did I do it right?" She sank to her knees and hugged him tightly, tears finally spilling over. "You saved me again," she whispered. "You knew." Aaron screamed insults as they dragged him away, threats and curses, but it no longer mattered. This time, there was no escape. This time, he had crossed a line too clear, too violent. The attempted murder charges would stick. The trespassing. The harassment. The violation of his parole. He would be locked away for decades. And Samantha knew, this time, it was over. In the days that followed, Samantha barely spoke to anyone. Not because she was afraid, but because she was finally, blessedly, at peace. Her body still trembled with residual shock, but her spirit no longer curled inward. She and Rex spent quiet hours in the garden. They went on long walks down forest paths. The sky looked different now, less like a ceiling, more like an open field. Marla came by one afternoon with paperwork. "You'll be asked to testify," she said gently. "But I don't think this trial will take long. His fate is sealed." "You did it, Sam." "No," Samantha said, scratching Rex behind the ears. We did it. The story made headlines again. This time, national ones. Hero K9 foils intruder in late-night attack. Reporters called daily, offering money for interviews. Samantha declined them all. The only public thing she agreed to was a visit to a local middle school, where she and Rex stood before a classroom of kids to talk about courage and instinct. She held up a picture of Rex as a police dog, proud, regal, standing at attention. "This dog saved my life," she told the children. Not just with his teeth or his strength, but with his heart. "He knew something was wrong before I did. He didn't wait for proof. He trusted his instincts. And that's what you all need to do, listen to the voice inside you when something feels off. That voice might save your life." A little girl raised her hand. "Is Rex a hero?" Samantha smiled. "He's more than a hero. He's my family." In the months that followed, life didn't return to what it once was, it became something better. Stronger. Samantha kept going to therapy. She began volunteering with animal rescue groups, telling her story to other survivors. Rex received an honorary medal from the Fairhill Police Department. He wore it proudly on his collar, though he never seemed to care about the attention. All he wanted was to stay by her side. The fear never disappeared entirely. It whispered sometimes in the quiet moments, crept back in during the dead of night. But it never ruled her again. Because every time she felt it closing in, she'd look over and see Rex. Calm. Watchful. Loyal. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and the cicadas buzzed in the dusk, Samantha sat on the porch with Rex beside her. A breeze rustled the leaves. Her fingers brushed through his thick fur. "You were my beginning," she whispered. "The moment you walked into that shelter, everything changed. You weren't just saving me from someone else. You were saving me from myself." Rex blinked slowly, then rested his head on her lap. Samantha closed her eyes and exhaled, long and deep. She had lived in terror. But not anymore. Because this K9's instincts hadn't just saved her life. They gave her a reason to live again.